would like to welcome all of you to this segment of Brand Talk. Brand Talk is not an interview. It is intended as a conversation to extend the platform to senior executives of companies to come and talk about their experience with building their own brands. And today, we have an entrepreneur and a founder of a company that really inspired a lot of people in the industry. And as a result, she received awards in recognition of her unique way of building a brand while keeping a strong emphasis on corporate social responsibility as it relates to the local communities of the weavers that make that and create these beautiful hammocks. The CEO is Josefina Urzaiz. She is a co-founder and entrepreneur that inspired the development of Hammock Boutique. Hammock Boutique is based in the Yucatan, Mexico. So we have a very interesting perspective, not only in brand building, but brand building as it relates to an emerging economy, as in the Mexican experience here, and how the passion about the brand, not only to market top quality experience for the customers, but also to illuminate the lives of the weavers that make that product in the local community. So she is going to talk about that aspect and how the brand for her was also a connector back to the community, in addition to connecting the brand with worldwide customers. She recently received an award, and she's going to tell us more about this beautiful award. So it's terrific to have Josefina with us. Thank you, Josefina, and welcome to the George Washington University School of Business. I guess we want to start this conversation by asking you a fundamental question. For an entrepreneur, being driven by innovation and creativity is core to the value creation. What are the core values that you installed in the building of basically the Hammock Boutique brand? What are these core values, and how did that inspire you to build the brand and to market the brand not only in Mexico, but also moving, I guess, across the border north to the US market, Canadian market, and then expanding to Europe, and hopefully, I guess the sky is the limit for you now. I'm sure we're looking into a worldwide recognition of your brand. So tell us about the story and how all it started with you and Hammock Boutique.
Thank you. Of course, Professor. I'm excited to be here, and thank you for helping us get to this award. It was thrilling to be at Times Square in a 30th floor at the Thomson Reuters building and be recognized with global brands such as Stella Artois and MasterCard, Accenture, Emerson, Ben & Jerry's, amongst other brands.
I understand. So they picked only 12.
They picked
worldwide.
only 12.
Yeah.
And
you were one of the 12.
Correct.
Wow.
And one of my friends told me to think that these brands typically have millions of dollars to build and to create their message and communicate it and be recognized amongst them, where being an entrepreneur, you're limited with resources and with staff, and to be able to be put at the same level, it was incredible. The global message we're recognized for is our concept of doing business, which is called the SHE Network, Sustainable Holistic Empowerment Network. And it speaks a lot about how we see running a business. And I think it's a different vision on caring not only to generate profits, which are fundamental to run a business sustainably, but to do more than that. And that's where the holistic part comes in. We don't only care to generate jobs for our weavers, but we care to doing something else beyond, because we realize that getting income was not teaching them that having Coca-Cola for breakfast is not ideal, or wasn't letting them know the importance for their children to finish elementary education. And so these other aspects that will help them improve their overall living conditions were not there only with the sustainable income. And so then we decided, well, if we are able to empower them in other ways where they're not only concerned about what they're going to eat tomorrow, and they can think of other things, and then that lift them completely out of the poverty line level where some of them were living. And then the network is all the institutions that make this possible. It is the Hammock Boutique, that is a profitable company. It is our nonprofit arm, Fundación Cielo, and it is the communities where they live and the over 880 families that we have in the network. And so this symbiotic relationship amongst all of these elements, I think, was what makes us different, and what I think it makes us much more impactful in our overall goal, which is not only creating the most beautiful, highest quality hammocks, but also we're telling a story, we're supporting a family, and we're doing above and beyond just generating profits, but trying to have an impact in our community and give back to where we're from and where we grew up, and telling everybody around the world about the beauty of this craftsmanship in the Yucatan.
Thank you. In your view, what are the key differentiators that sets the Hammock Boutique products or brands apart from any other competing brand, locally, regionally, and potentially globally?
I think the key selling proposition of our hammocks is that it's not just a hammock. Okay. There is a story behind that hammock. Okay. There is a family. There is a tradition that goes back hundreds of years. And there is this hammock made with love because it took weeks to make, and is the highest quality possible. We use the best yarn to make it. We care for the packaging. We care for the quality control of it. And then we are able, on the more practical differentiations, we're able to reach anywhere in the world. You would be surprised where we ship hammocks sometimes, being from a product from Mexico, but we ship to Mongolia, we ship to many parts of Asia, in spite of the fact that there are some hammocks made in Asia, and we compete against those. They're very cared for in Europe, and obviously the US is a very important market for us. But what is interesting is that 80% of our production goes outside Mexico. And so from the get-go, we had to think big, and we had to think with different mindsets, meaning that we need to tailor different markets. The Japanese market is very different from the American market and from the European market, and they care about different things, different colors, different designs. And I think that's part of what sets us apart, that we've been able to come up, transform a traditional handcraft into a product that tailors different markets, that adds value by decorating fringes that we add to some of our products, by using the right colors for the right market. I think that has set us apart.
Tell us, how did you enter the U.S. market? And oftentimes, your brand as strong as the partnerships that you build around that brand. Who are some of the key partners that you aligned yourself with in order to enhance your penetration of the U.S. market?
I think the partnership we started with Lowe's.
Okay, tell us about that.
Sure. We've started 10 years ago, and it started all in Mexico, and we realized that in order to get into the U.S. market, penetrate better, we needed to set up shop in the U.S. Okay. And that's why 5 years ago we registered a company in the U.S. and started taking advantage of all the benefits that it brought with that to be able to expand. And one of those is the partnership with Lowe's. We are featured under supplier diversity team, and that means that they make an effort to buy from smaller vendors. Where they would typically not do that, and 98% of whatever is sold at Lowe's comes from China typically. They were looking to suppliers elsewhere, smaller suppliers, And that's where we came into place. And we convinced them of starting out small. Instead of trying to put us in 2,000 stores, we only started in 150. And those that were selected, they had the highest hammock sales. And that has given us so much visibility in the U.S. market. And we prove as well that we had a great product, that it was very marketable. And the plan is to continue to expand when we are able to increase our manufacturing capacity, which is one of our projects right now, so that we can expand to more stores. And like that, we also enter some other large U.S. platforms, online platforms like Overstock. We're also on Amazon, and we also have our own website. But we realize of the challenge that it takes to bring traffic to your own website, and how expensive it can be when you're competing with a Walmart or a Wayfair or even Amazon. And so we decided that it was better to just be in those large marketplaces and have our own website, but not to try to drive all the traffic to our own website.
Okay. So what's the percentage of your sales that come from online versus brick and mortar?
It is 40-60. 40% online, 60% brick and mortar.
Wow.
Because most
So
of our
the
sales
brick
are
and mortar is still the dominant
correct.
channel.
Correct.
Okay.
So most of our sales that are online happen in the U.S. However, for our customers in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Europe, and many in U.S. and Canada are brick and mortar stores.
And what type of stores are these?
So say you
Like-
go to the French market in Louisiana, there's a
Okay.
store called Latin Hands, and they sell my hammocks.
Okay.
So you travel to Vancouver in Canada, there is a store that only sells hammocks and sell my
In
hammocks.
Vancouver?
In Vancouver. You travel to Madrid or Barcelona, and there are one store in each place owned by different gentlemen that sell my hammocks. Same thing in Japan, Australia, New Zealand. I have two very large wholesalers that distribute there, and I have a very large wholesaler in Denmark that distributes to most of the Scandinavian countries and Eastern Europe.
What's the volume of sales, if we may ask?
We sell around 45,000 pieces a year, and if you think that each one takes about 2 weeks to process, sometimes take 1 month, because they're made in the spare time of the weavers. Only a handful of them would use this as a full-time job and actually work on the hammock 8 hours. Most of them just weave on their free time. They cook, they weave, they watch soap operas, they weave. They make dinner, they weave, and so it's a sporadic.
Flex hours.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do flex hours. That's correct. And so the production is very limited, and the
Production capacity.
production capacity is very limited. It already takes a very human effort to manage this over 880 families.
How do you control for quality, considering that different families with different probably circumstances facing them every day? How do you control for quality? Who's your chief quality controller, for example?
That's a great question. It's actually one of our bottlenecks, because we accept, and part of our giving back or our philosophy is that we take everything they weave. We don't. If they make mistakes, we take it in. We don't mind.
So you do the quality control afterwards.
Correct. So we pay them for their hand labor, regardless. Upfront.
By quantity.
So they're paid based on the bundles of yarn woven.
Okay.
So that's why it's a fair payment.
Okay.
Whether they did one size or another, it don't matter. How many bundles of yarn they wove,
Right.
that's what we pay for.
Okay.
And then we bring it to the city, and we have a staff that full time is inspecting.
Okay.
And it takes a very qualified person to be able to fix them.
Right.
Because what oftentimes happens is there was something exciting in the soap opera and they missed the yarn. And so we need to fix that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do.
So these are not
control.
irregularities. These are more of quality issues that can be addressed.
Correct.
So you don't accept any irregular product, and you sell that on a discount or something.
No,
you don't do that.
no. And in fact,
So if it is irregular, what do you do with it?
I fix it, and
If it's fixable?
everything is fixable.
Okay.
Everything is fixable.
Okay.
And what happens is most of the times we also add parts.
Okay.
So sometimes you have a metal part or
Right.
a wooden part,
Oh, okay.
and those
so
are all
the
put
finishing
together.
of the product
happens
at your
shop.
shop. Okay.
Correct. And there we do the quality control, we pack and we ship.
Okay.
And we have a few large shipments throughout the year. For instance, when we ship to Australia and New Zealand, we ship full containers. And so it takes a lot of time to make sure we get all the products filled and we ship in time for their season. And that also balances us as well because it's a very seasonable product. So that way we have covered the year with the summer in Australia and New Zealand and the vice versa here.
As a co-owner, how do you manage your schedule? You have almost one foot in the Yucatan and the other foot in Washington, because you have an office in Washington and you have most of your operation obviously is based in the Yucatan. How do you maintain this duality? And as an executive now, how do you manage your time?
It's a great question, especially now that I'm also a mother.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. I used to be an investment banker,
okay.
and I used to work over 100 hours a week,
okay.
and it didn't matter what time of the day it was. It would be sometimes full nights at a time, 2 days in a row or 3. And so I learned to work a lot in a way, bad habits. But what happens is that now that is my business, that is my 100% interest and desire, my other baby, it doesn't feel the same. And I work probably as many hours, but it's different interest or desire to be doing what you're doing. And so it just happens that being a mother actually works out really well because I just work whenever I can. And it could be on a Sunday at 2 a.m. or at midnight, but it doesn't matter as long as I get things done, since I don't have to show up to an office 9 to 5, which would be a challenge with the baby and having to travel back and forth. So it actually works better. It was interesting because I didn't have maternity leave, because of course I cannot just shut down the phone. But I'm able to use my time in however it works, and the desire again is different. You care to do it. You're motivated beyond any other job that you would typically have.
Talk to us about how is it like to build an entrepreneur enterprise in Mexico versus building an entrepreneur enterprise in the U.S. I mean, from a cross-cultural point of view, doing a business in Mexico, how is it like compared to doing a business in the U.S.?
I like to tell the Americans how good they have it. Sometimes they don't realize and how much easier it is to be an entrepreneur.
So ease of doing business.
Oh, everything, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mexico by no means is better than many other places in the world, but it's still a challenge.
Right.
And to put in perspective, we need to have a full-time office running our accounting in Mexico. Here in the U.S., I do it myself with Quicken, and just the accountant works for me at the end of the year to file the taxes, and that's it. So that gives you the amount of paperwork or administrative requirements that the Mexican government still has, and a lot of things still in paper. The little bit is starting to be more electronic, but is even for registering, you need to still go to a lawyer and sit down and do paperwork, whereas here you just go to mycorp.com and file and register in any state you want, and they get you the bylaws automatically. It's so much easier. And then from an investment perspective, being an entrepreneur, you have so much more access to funds in the U.S., whether it is from the Small Business Administration, from being a woman, and just in general, even the banking services. Any credit line for a small business would be at a significant better rate to any loan at a local bank in Mexico. And so there are tremendous advantages from wherever you want to put it. And now even from an investor perspective, where you have angel investors that are willing to put and risk their money in young entrepreneurs everywhere in the U.S. where you look. So it's much, much easier to do it here.
You have been, sponsoring two of our teams for the past 6 months. They have been working with you. I'm teaching, of course, the Strategic Brand Management course, which is cross-listed between our School of Business and the Elliott School for International Affairs. And I know you are a graduate of another school of foreign services in town here that I wouldn't mention the name. But what's your experience of this relationship? One team is working on rebranding the Yucatan Peninsula and the entire Yucatan region in Mexico, while the other team is building a global brand strategy for Hammock Boutiques. So what's your experience and what are some of the lessons learned or main takeaways so far?
I think that the key takeaway has been the suggestion of leveraging the Yucatan brand, which is already a much bigger brand and very well known in many sectors or pockets of the population, associating it with Hammock Boutique and taking advantage of some of the work that the Mexican government already does, promoting the state of the Yucatan and taking advantage of that in associating Hammock Boutique with the Yucatan, which is something we never thought about before, never came up as an idea. It's something, there is the Made in Mexico brand that we use sometimes, but never thought about it. And so I think having done the School of Foreign Service, but also audited some MBA classes, I love the fact that you have a well-rounded team looking into this. It sometimes takes different perspective and mindsets to come up with more creative ideas.
I should give credit actually to the global chairman of Future Brand, who really inspired me to make that strong connection between the made in and the country of origin effect as it relates to branding a country, branding a region, as in the case of linking the handcrafted, hammocks with the fact that they are crafted by local weavers from the Yucatan. Making that connection is very important, and that was one of the projects that Future Brand have been really championing, is really ranking regions and countries based on the power of the made-in effect and how that relates to the brand of the region or the brand of the state or the country. So I think a step in the right direction in potentially helping to brand a made in the Yucatan and made in Mexico brand, if you will, particularly in the handcrafted cluster of industries. The handcrafted segment of the industry specifically will benefit greatly from that. So looking forward here, what are your aspirations for Hammock Boutique in the near future, and how you what will be the next level you want to take Hammock Boutiques to?
I think the main goal here would be to create this global brand that not only offers Mayan hammocks, but we also could expand into other designs of hammocks, and to be the go-to brand for anyone thinking of buying a hammock. What has happened is that I think your students agree that hammocks are basically sold as commodities. Right. Nobody actually associates a hammock with any specific brand, and we want to change that. We want to be the go-to brand for hammocks, and I think we have the capacity to do it. I think we can grow from a financial standpoint our business many folds and turn it into a multi-million-dollar company. And we can also, that would mean expanding our network of weavers. Our goal is to get to at least 2,000 families in the next 5 years. And so that would permeate in the community, in the development. We also have the goal to build a community center where we currently have students from GW spending their summer working as our interns. And we want to have full-time staff working in the community so that we can have a greater impact with these families.
Mm-hmm. To what extent do you think endorsements from B Corp and fair trade have really helped reinforce your commitment to corporate social responsibility and fair trade as a senior executive of Hammock Boutique? To what extent?
I think it brings standardization because
Okay.
in terms of what is it, those companies that say that they're socially committed or they're doing more above and beyond what is the standard or what the industry does. I think it brings standard and puts us all at the same level because we have to complete very rigorous processes to get to either of the two certifications. We actually have been awarded again Best for the World by B Corp this year, so 2 years in a row that we're going to be named with this. And with the fair trade, I think it's also a more knowledgeable or marketable recognition that we have, and there's people that really care about buying fair trade products. I think overall we see a trend in people going back to basics, going back to handcrafted products, caring about where those products come from, caring that the person who made it were paid fairly, caring that the materials used were sourced without destroying the environment, that people recycle. And so all of those things, we see a global trend, and I think we are being ahead. There's no other brand of hammocks that is either both B Corp and Fair Trade certified, mm-hmm. and I think that sets us apart.
That's a key differentiator.
A very key differentiator, and I think more and more we will see a marketplace that grows caring for those products. I think the millennials have been told or is said that they care much more than the older generations, and so we want to be able to appeal to them and show them how we are different and we are better in a more socially conscious way.
So good brands make a big difference from brand growing experience in your case, as well as with respect to commitment to the local communities. So it makes a perfect sense, I'm assuming, then to really have championed the sustainability, corporate social responsibility as key pillars for the building of your brand, because it made sense for the brand building, but also made a difference in the local community. So that double vision has been very important in building your brand and brand leadership within the hammock industry.
We definitely consider ourselves pioneers for the hammock industry and furniture industry. Pioneers in Mexico, for sure, where all this is
new,
very, very new, and the U.S. is much more developed. And we just see that people need to shift that mindset in how to do business. I think is the way forward. I think is the best for our society. And I think, again, the marketplace is changing, but there is so much more satisfaction of doing business in this conscious way than it is otherwise. Well, at least we felt it. Seeing the families of weavers smile, seeing these children smile when we're there and the work we're doing, and see the difference that we can make, it has a reward that no monetary success can reward you that much.
We saw how caring, creativity, and communication have made a big, huge difference in building an entrepreneur brand like Hammock Boutique and taking it to new heights. From a homegrown local Yucatan brand to a global player in the hammock and the furniture, casual furniture industry. Yeah? Cut the attention of Lowe's and other big players, cut the attention of ANA and other prestige organizations. So congratulations, Josefina, and thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to welcome you again in the near future at the George Washington University School of Business. Thank you again for joining us to this segment of Brand Talk.